Welcome to another week of strategies, tactics, and technique tips for the week for MMA. And today's video tutorial is going to cover one of the most neglected topics and skill sets in MMA, and that topic is defense. Welcome to another edition of strategies, tactics, and technique tips for the week for MMA. In this week's tutorial, we're going to discuss a very important subject, and in my opinion, I feel it's one of the most important subjects in martial arts in general, and one of the most neglected subjects in martial arts in general, particularly in MMA, and that topic is defense. Now defenses can represent a whole lot of different skill sets: blocking, covering, shielding, evasion, footwork, interceptions, things like that nature. But today we're going to talk about the common response patterns that most MMA fighters either adapt through training, or they just simply through instinctual response. And they're not very the most intelligent defenses, in my opinion. So we're going to go through the common responses that you see in a lot of MMA fights, and I challenge you to go watch the UFC or Bellator or any MMA videos and see how many fighters commonly respond in this manner. Okay, so some of these common responses that a lot of these fighters do are usually based on one thing, that is either fear or some kind of fear of survival, basically. It's when they're put into an abnormal state of duress that brings about one of these responses. Now these are gross motor skill actions that usually are getting exaggerated more the more the stress level becomes apparent. So going through these things, now the question is that why do these fighters do these things? It's, in my opinion, I think a lot of the fighters that they respond in this way when I show you these things is really for one reason only, is because they don't spend enough time training in these skill sets by themselves. So as much time as they spend, striking the pads and doing all the Muay Thai and all these pre-thought out combinations, they don't spend enough time in learning how to block, effectively. Why can't they stop a swarm of punches? Why are they closing their eyes and their arms are flailing all over the place when that happens? Why can't they, effectively slip, and duck under a punch and counter back immediately? Why are they, trading punches and closing their eyes as they're doing it? These are all common responses that are just not very effective and not the most intelligent things to do in the ring. And they may get lucky, from one fight to the other, not get hit or hit somebody, and they close their eyes and hit them first. But it's not really intelligent defenses. So some of the common responses in here are simply going to be this. The first one we're going to talk about is probably the most common one, is the flinching response, coupled with reaching out and blocking. Okay, so let's go through that one. Okay, flinching is a very common response to the human body when something is threatening the perceptual or the thought process of a human being. It's very impossible. It's hard to completely avoid, but it can be controlled a lot if you practice it enough. So what you see a lot is this in here. One of the common responses is as soon as a person throws a punch in here, you'll see the eyes will close and the hands will come up into some kind of primal response. And that primal response to a human being is to reach out and splay the fingers in here and try to grab or deflect or protect the general area where something's coming at. Okay, if you think about it, if you look at it like in forensics and stuff, when someone goes through the windshield of a car, the most of the trauma is taken on the arms in here like this, and the face is because the hands come out here as a form of defense to brace against that impact in here. Or think about when something falls off a shelf and you can't quite pick it off in time, your hands come out in here like this, and often the hands will shoot out in here like this in some artless direction, and the head will pull away and the eyes will close at the same time. Okay, so that's a very common flinch reflex in fighting. So you'll see a lot of fighters do that. Let's back up a little bit. As soon as a technique comes in here, they're already shutting off in here like this, and the hands are coming up in a general position of where the fighter's mind, that's the last thing. Your hands will go where the mind remembers last. The mind thinks in images in here. So if he thinks the punches, do that again and kind of is coming straight here, the hands will come up in here, even though he really can't see it in here like this. And he may, as he punches through, he may get his hands in the way, or he may overreact in here too quick in here and get clocked in here like this. Okay, all simply because he can't even see the thing coming. It's like if I just turned the lights off in the room, and then took a swing at the guy in here, he can't see anything, all right? Or, he throws out like an overhand in here, and I'm assuming it's coming here because I've seen this common pattern coming like this in here, and the next one comes over, and I close my eyes because my mind goes, uh-oh, this is the way to prepare for dangers, is not to face it directly, is to close the eyes. Okay, so the flinch response in here, coupled with reaching out in here, is a very common pattern in fighting, in a fight or flight response in here. Okay, and again, there are ways to, drills, and specific skill sets to train that in. Okay, so one of the biggest mistake, in all types of responses is the perceptual awareness. It's a loss of perception. It's not being connected to my opponent here. When I'm standing in front of my opponent, I need to be connected to every little movement he does. There's no way I can do that if I'm, got my eyes closed, or I'm staring up at his eyes or something like that. Okay, so the flinch is probably the most common response, coupled with reaching out in here. Okay, let's go on to the next defense. Okay, the second common defensive response, and again, flinching is usually connected to all these. Okay, so we're just going to assume that they're flinching in every single one in here. All right, is reaching out and trying to block or grab. Okay, so you got to have effective blocking skills in here, but what you'll see a lot is this, right? So if he backs up in here, is he'll throw a technique out here like this in here, and the guy's already reaching out, trying to stop it out here. He's trying to grab it or catch it out of the air. You'll see a lot of this, okay? So the hands are coming out here, and they're trying to stop it out here like that, reaching out in here. And one of the problems with doing this in here is that is timing. If he fakes me over here, or throws a technique or a combination that I'm not ready for, and I'm already reaching my preconceived responses to reach out in here, right? So he fools me in here, and I go like this in here like this, and then here comes this. My hands are already retracted. All right, go ahead and do that again. My hands are already retracted and out, or extracted out here like this, where I'm not going to be able to pull my hand back in time to get this thing off because my hands are too far out. I'm simply either going to have to change head positions in here. So do that again. He throws a technique and I overcommit like this. I'm either going to have to change my head position, or I'm going to have to very least roll with the technique. So reaching out and trying to grab in here, or trying to deflect in here like this as he throws punches, right, is a common response, that is a very ineffective response when dealing with somebody who's fast, tricky, and more importantly, a swarm. There's no way in heck that you're going to stop a sudden swarm of punches by reaching out like that. Okay, so reaching out in here with your hands extended out here away from your targets in here is a second common mistake, and a big no-no in here. All right, the third common mistake that's made in a defensive error is not blocking, but trying to cover. Okay, cover the vital target, but still again extending the hands away from the head and pulling the head away. Okay, unlike blocking in here, or catching, whereas he goes to throw a technique and I try to intercept, these techniques out here like this. Another common response is to cover and to take the strikes on the limbs in here, part of my body that's less susceptible to injury. Okay, so what you'll see a lot is a fighter will do this. He'll bring his arms in here like this, okay, and try to take the technique, on the arms and the gloves in here like this. Or if he throws a punch here, like a hook in here, he'll take it on the shoulders. But here's the other common mistake you still see, is you still see the arms reach out and the head pull away in here, the head pull away like this, and then obviously coupled probably with flinching, and the technique just simply goes right around in here. So there's no advantage of trying to bring your arms in tight and then still pull your head away, because now what you're doing is throw that hook again, is you're still creating that same gap if you were to reach out and splay your fingers like this. So pulling the head out of this pocket in here is a very, no-no against hooks and overhands like this. Okay, especially when you can't move. It's one thing here, back up a little bit, if he throws that same technique in here and I step back in here like this, okay, now he can't reach me. But if I can't move in here, my back is up against the ropes or the cage in here, if I'm on the ground, and I pull my head away like this and separate my head from my body here, I'm just simply going to get clocked in the face in here like this. Okay, you even see that with kicks too, as a roundhouse kick comes up in here, the guy will pull his head back in here, and that's a very instinctual common response, again, to the fight or flight, is to disconnect, and he throws a technique in here, is to disconnect, throw a little faster in here, right, pull away and literally shut off and not want to face the threat, directly. So covering and pulling the hands, away, or pulling the head away from the hands, or pulling your hands away from your head, creates the same problem, leaving the chin exposed. And you're simply just going to get, your head is sticking out here, like a pinata, and he'll simply just access your jaw in here like that. Okay? So that is the third defensive error made in MMA. All right, the fourth common defensive response that's made is running or retreating away from your opponent. Okay? Now there's a difference between tactically evading, and there's a difference between running away as like almost leaving the whole arena, leaving the octagon, and then trying to re-engage. Okay? So what that looks like is you'll see a lot of this. Now this is better than taking a hit, obviously. The first three are absolutely just unacceptable. This one is not so bad in here. And I'll explain kind of the reasons why. So here, back up a little bit. So what you'll see a lot of is, as he throws a technique, is I'll just run back in here like this and retreat from there. So when a fighter does that in here, he's completely leaving the here like this, and he's not even in a position to counter in here. So a lot of times when they run back and they lean away, they run back in a straight line, which makes them susceptible to getting charged over. And you simply just can't use that as your form of defense, all the time. Expect to be effective in countering. So the problem with doing that is when I run out of the way and he stops chasing me and he goes back in the center of the octagon as we start over again in here, and hopefully I get another chance at trying to, as he throws a technique, is to try to intercept him or something like that. So running away, simply just leaving, that's more like out of being scared or cowardly. It seems like that's not tactical running. Tactical running would be more of, here, back up a little bit in here. As he comes at me in here like this, I step off line and I hit him here like this and stay in range to clock him in here and stay in range to hit him again. That would be more of a using running and footwork as tactically. But this simply of just backpedaling like a bicycle in here like this is simply just a kind of a really not effective way to really to learn how to stay in a position to counter in here. So it certainly is better than taking a hit, but still, again, it's a very common response that's usually not very effective, and you can tell a fighter's kind of really, he's not really connected to offense and defense. If I constantly back up some more, if he throws a technique and I run away in here like this, then I have to step back into range and hopefully start again. I can't immediately counter, as opposed to if he throws a technique in here and I step over the line, I can hit him like this in here, right? Or if he throws a punch at me in here like this, right, I can block and hit back. Those are all responses that allow you to get right back in the fight. Okay, so running away or backpedaling backwards is the fourth common mistake. All right, the fifth and final defensive response often made is trading punches. Basically what that means is that they're foregoing any kind of defensive movements in here, and what you'll see fighters basically trying to take one to give one. This is a very common response, and usually what I witness is you'll see a lot of out of positioning, like they're flinching and looking down at the ground. So what you'll see is, do this very slowly, so as he initiates in here, I kind of duck and as I'm trying to talk to the camera, my eyes are closed, and I'm trying to hit him where I think he was last. And as we keep throwing punches in here, I'm literally just trying to hit him. And most of the time you see fighters trying to get a glimpse of it as they keep going in here and trying to throw in here, go like this. And a lot of times the techniques are real artless in here. They don't really have any rhyme or reason in here like that. Okay, so very common to stand the ground, coupled with being out of position. If he throws a technique, you'll see fighters, going out here like this, and they're throwing the punches from, the guy's real close in here, and they're throwing a big hook from here, and it's missing by a mile, and he comes back, right, and a punch, boom, like this in here, arms are out here, right, wham, I get hit in here like this, and it's just a matter of time before somebody gets knocked out. Sometimes you see a fighter get knocked out, and they get caught in what's called a flash knockout. He wasn't ready for it, and he sees that camera flash, and then the fighter runs off like, oh, I knocked him out, he's acting like he totally, set that all up, when in fact he just was guessing. He was doing just as much as the other guy in here. So trading punches and this swinging in a dark closet in here like this is a very common response in the mixed martial arts competition. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk about why this happens, and kind of what to do to kind of to retrain this in here, so you have a much better approach to having better defensive skill set selections. Okay, now that I've talked about the 5 common defensive responses that are made in most fighters' defensive skill sets in here in a real fight, when they're threatened in here, let's talk about some of the reasons why this may happen in here. One of the main reasons that in my opinion, that I feel this happens, and I've discussed this before in other videos, is the fighter's psychological preference, or his patterns, or his traits that he has ingrained in his subconscious mind. And what that is called the archetypes. Okay, I've talked about archetypes many times. The last couple weeks, we've just done tutorials on the different archetypes. There's basically five archetypes, 4 of them which are actual real specific distinctive types. The 5th one is not. So what that means is that why does one fighter, every time that he's attacked, why does he run in here, as opposed to why does one stand his ground and try to block and fight back and swing back in here like this and try to force his way into this guy's face? There's 2 different kind of responses there. And basically what that means is that there's one fighter that the reason why that he runs in here. So if you get one fighter in here and he step back and he throws a technique, and every time he's trying to just get out of the way in here like this, and when you see him respond like that repetitively, we call that guy a runner, okay, which is a counter fighter. So his defensive response against, most of the time, to threat, to the fight or flight response, is to avoid any kind of force on force. Okay? So that has nothing to do with their technique, has nothing to do with their age, has nothing to do with being in weight class, it has nothing to do with being their gender. It's how they feel that they need to stay in control of this scenario when threatened. Okay? Now they reverse. Let's go to the opposite. Why does another fighter do this? Instead of running in here, why does he stand here and throw a technique, and he kind of defends himself, he just tries to hit back in here like this, right? And then we separate in here like this again, and nothing really happened, and he throws a technique in here, and I try to defend and hit back, and I respond again. My response is, the fighter's response is, they'll always kind of block and defend and stand their ground, like putting up a wall here, a shield, and then trying to hit back. Why does one fighter do that as opposed to run? Okay, well that's that fighter's common response to that scenario, right? So he's actually trying to block and stand his ground, and we call that fighter a blocker, okay, which is another form of counter fighting. All right, so there's all different like I said, there's different ways that people respond, and using those 5 different responses. But majority of fighters are usually going to respond in kind of in a couple of those, in at least 2 of those manners. They're either going to retreat, or they're going to stand their ground and try to fight, whether they got try to block or whatnot in here. They're going to try to do 1 or 2 things. They're either going to throw a punch, they're going to try to retreat, and then swing back in here, or they're going to try to block in here and trade in here like this. One of those 2 things. And most of the time, you're going to see them close their eyes as they do so. Okay? So those, that's some of the reason why, in my opinion, I think they do respond like these fighters do that, because they're really, when they're fighting, their training, their technique is going out the door. Their technique is diminishing, and what's kicking in is their survival mind, is their instincts are kicking in. So they're fighting through their emotions. When they're fighting through their emotions and they're listening to their emotions, it's like they got two minds. One mind is your strategic mind of all your strategies and tactics and techniques, and the other mind is kind of just like your reactive mind, how you're going to respond instinctually. And whether you can kind of bring your strategic techniques and stuff to that part of the mind, that all depends on your level of skill and your control. Okay, so that's why when you see a fighter in here, and he's in round number one, he's throwing technique on jab, cross, hook, uppercut, everything's real smooth, and all of a sudden he gets clocked in the face, boom! Like here he gets clocked, and his nose is bleeding here, and then you see him all of a sudden throw an artless haymaker in here like this, and he just goes berserk. Is because what happened is once he got clocked in the face, that immediate response, what he does in that immediate response, decided, how he's going to attack back. So his training, all his trained jab, cross, hook, uppercut, bob, weave, that all went out the door in that midst of that getting hit here like this, and the pain kicked in, the fear kicked in, and his mind said, what? Swing with full force, attack with full force, whether it's a punch, kick, or grapple, or a combination of both, right? His aggressive mindset kicked in. Okay, so that's in my opinion, some of the reasons why fighters do that. The other reason why fighters respond in some of these sloppy ways is because of the lack of training in defensive skill sets overall. Right? I haven't really seen fighters and coaches spend a lot of time practicing on just blocking skills. I know for us, I've been training for 22 years, and I still to this day, when I drill with, when I work out, people work out with me and I train people, we spend a lot of time on blocking skills in here. So, he's throwing punches, we work on warming up. This may not be the actual class, but we practice on warming up a lot with those skill sets in here, right? And, coupled with, moving around obviously in here. But for today, right now, the camera purposes, because we're in a kind of confined environment today, is we practice on standing our ground with a little bit of controlled footwork, right? Your footwork is the kind of maintenance of your functional fighting platform. And we actually spend a lot of time practicing on driving, blocking skill set, these techniques in here, watching, these things come through in here like this, and working on not flinching in here. Believe it or not, there is a way to work on doing that. Okay, so that's another thing that, in my opinion, that fighters don't do. They don't spend enough time practicing the individual skill sets. Okay, so let's go ahead through some of the skill sets that you can actually work on and separate that out from your sparring training for a while, so you can really hone in good perceptual awareness and good defensive, responsive skills based on different situations. Alright, one of the first and probably most important skill sets that I believe an MMA fighter should drill in with as many sparring partners as possible is blocking and parrying. Okay, blocking and parrying are common reflexes that a human being has anyway to threat. Remember what I said earlier about the splaying of the hands and the reaching out in here when the box comes off in here, falls down like this in here, if I throw my keys out in your face, right, like that. Okay, that's a very common response. Okay, now what you want to be able to do is, because you're going to substitute gross motor skill action for finite motor skills, is to practice staying in really good control when doing this type of defense. Now this defense, along with all defenses, has its advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of this defense is it really improves your timing in here. So if we set this up in here in a way to where I have to actually defend myself, but I'm not short of getting clocked in the face in here right now, is that I can actually put myself in a position and a guard stance in here, and as he throws techniques, I can practice, learning how to kind of deflect these things in here. Like this. That's starting out kind of, moderate like that, where he throws kind of a technique and I can see it, and I'm actually putting my hand right in the right spot at the right time, actually creating these walls in here like so. Okay, so reaching out, this just general idea is he throws a technique, and as long as I don't reach out too much in here, that I just do just enough in here to kind of deflect that. So a parry obviously is deflecting something at a right angle. It's like two cars coming in, and boom, they kind of nullify each other like this. And a block is usually mostly against circular forces in here. So as he throws like a hook or something in here, is to reach out and and stop it out here like this. So creating a blocking parrying skill set is very important in close ranges when you can't retreat. Now if we take a step back in here and I'm really far out in here like this, and he throws a long punch in here, yeah, I don't probably need blocking. I probably can just evade within my stance in here. But when we're in close range in here, and particularly a swarm of punches come in here, I need to make sure that I can actually pick these things off and use my footwork to kind of maintain my stance in here until I can deliver a technique back in here, or at least get out of the way. Okay, so that skill set needs to be trained in a lot, over and over. Like I said, we do this all the time, even though it's easy for us. We spend a lot of time warming up with drills like that just to get our nervous system connected to defense and offense in here. The other thing is the advantages of blocking and parrying. It allows you to pick off the techniques from further out. Okay, so what that means is in here is that when he throws a punch in here, I'm waiting to the optimal time to deflect this thing in here like this, or to block this thing here. So I'm actually stopping the technique further out in here like this, so avoid getting hit. Okay, now I have to keep my vision open on this whole thing here. So where do you want to watch when you do this stuff? Well, in most defensive skill sets, you want to focus. We like to focus more on the chest, shoulder area in here. We kind of say watch the chest, because what that does is that allows me to get fixated on his entire body in here like that. If I look up to his eyes more, I get lost in his personality, and particularly if I'm a shorter fighter in here, or I may not be able to see his feet. I kind of want to have like a flashlight, and the brightest point is right here, okay, but I can still see the silhouette a little bit. So we tend to keep our eyes wide open and really force ourselves to keep our chin down, and not just to protect our throat, but also to kind of look through our upper eyes in here like this. So we don't flinch as much in here like that. So we tend to watch the shoulders and chest area in here, so we can actually see, when a technique comes in here, right? His whole, he can't throw a punch without moving his shoulders to some degree, and there's no way that he can do it. Okay, so that's a skill set that you can actually work on and really, really improve your perceptual awareness. Okay, so this goes into the second and third forms of defenses in here that we like to train in. Now, I mentioned to you earlier about the covering concept, where a fighter brings their gloves up in here and their elbows in here to kind of protect their head and their body in here like this. Okay. Now, so there's a concept of covering, and there's a concept of actually shielding. Okay, if you want to call it covering, that's fine. But there's a way to do it without losing your perception in here, without reaching out. Remember I said the common thing when fighters cover in here is that you throw a hook for that camera in here like this, is to reach out in here like this, is to bring the arms up in here to get closer to the face, but they actually just open the side of their face up by pulling their head out here like this, coupled with closing their eyes. Okay, so there's no advantage of reaching out, pulling your head back like this, and stopping it out here. If that was the case, then throw the hook again. You should have done a block in the first place, right? Okay, so covering should be, or shielding should be, the idea of using that skill set when you have zero reaction time, and that can be based on many things. Maybe you do flinch. Maybe the guy's faster than you. Close range. A swarm of this skill set is incredibly important for a swarm of punches. Now, when I say close range doesn't mean you have to be in a clinch of some kind in here, but it should be where you simply just can't. Again, you cannot extract yourself and pull away. Otherwise, the time-distance variable has been diminished. So, a way to actually work on the covering or the shielding skills is to practice starting in the shield first. Is to actually practice starting in this tight cage. And as he throws a technique, again, my chin is down and I'm keeping my eyes, and then the disadvantage of doing this is I have to keep my eyes open. I have to look through this little gap in my arms, as opposed to blocking, I got a huge window to see through. So the disadvantage of covering or shielding is I'm opening, I can't quite see, so my vision is limited. So that should force you to really focus and really try to watch. It's like trying to look through the trees to see the beach in here like this. I certainly don't want to pop my head out in here like this. You'll simply just access the other point of entry in here. And I certainly don't want to close off in here where I can't see. So right now I can't see the camera, but if I open up a little bit in here, I can see just enough in here and just make very small adjustments. So the real art form to covering or shielding is to stay as compact as you can in a functional fighting platform, but to do very small movements in here and take the impact on a part of the arms that in a strong position. So let me explain that further. So if I put my arms up like this, and he kind of throw like a cross in here, and I boom, throw a little faster, and I kind of put my limbs here, right? What's happening is I'm smashing my own hands and my own face in here like this. Okay, now if you do this with boxing gloves on, you may not feel the impact as much as you got a bigger pillow. But with these MMA gloves on and I put my arms here, I'm actually going to take my knuckles or fingers and smash myself in the face. Also, if you look at this position, this arm position here is a lever. If he puts his arm, here you go ahead and do it. If he puts his arms up in here like this, in this V position in here, when I make impact right here like this is simply going to fold. Okay, this is not a strong point because I'm bending this thing here at the joint. What needs to happen is that he needs to raise the arms up higher and create a 90-degree angle so that his lower forearm and tricep and shoulder muscle all become into alignment, and his drive leg and back is really bracing. So now the punch is super strong in here like this. So even a good punch, a hard punch, in here, right, it's going to be deflected off in here like this. Okay. Now, especially, if I start throwing all kinds of weird-ass angles in here, the advantage of doing this is that he doesn't have to really be so specific on his timing in here. Like blocking, he's got to be right on the money. Okay? But here, when he's covering or shielding, see, he's staying real tight. And what happens is that now he's just got to make very small movements and just see the general trajectory of where these techniques are coming in here like this. Okay, now viewers are going to say, well, a lot of fighters do that. No, they don't, because if they do that, why do you see them going out here like this? Right? Now the other thing about doing the shielding or covering is the ability to maintain your perception again. Okay, is that you can't just stop one technique and just retreat. So throw a punch and I just go, okay, I survived it. Okay, I need to be able to link an immediate counterattack to this defense, as well as all defenses. Okay, so the other drill that we like to do a lot, and we'll do this slow so we don't smash each other in here, is we like to do a shield drill in here. So usually for a beginner, we'll actually start in a shield where we can just step and reach each other. And what I do is I throw a technique, whatever I want, and then I recover, then he throws a technique. And what I'm learning how to do is kind of initiate my offense and then work on my defense. And he's doing the same thing. He's working on initiating his defense and then initiating his offense. So we practice on delivering any technique in here. And what I like to do is I usually kind of start out slow and wide and big so he can start to see it, against a beginner. And then as we get better in here, I go a little tighter and a little faster. And also what I do is I give him less time to recover. So as soon as he throws a technique, he's got to be right back into his shield in here. So we work on adjusting in here. So we're not just holding the arms up, okay? But very, very, very small movements. So especially like a hook, right? You're more open over here when you do this kind of defense. Is that we just trade hooks. It's just very small, right? You throw one here, right? Do it on this side of the camera, right? It's a very small adjustment in here like this, right? So it's a combination of, retracting this back in here like this and still staying in my stance. So what I'm not doing is going, okay, here, do it again, shield, stuff like this, right? Stuff like this where I completely lost my ability to function and see. Okay, so shielding back and forth is a super important skill set, particularly when someone tries to swarm you. You see a lot of fighters when they get on the ground, as soon as they get on the ground, or as soon as someone comes after them in here with a swarm of punches, they have no chance. Almost 99% of them get crushed. So if he throws a swarm of punches, okay, go ahead. I should be able to kind of adjust this thing here wherever I need to adjust and still maintain a functional ability to wham, to come out and counter in here. Okay, so that's the difference between shielding or covering and actually tactically adjusting the shield, just like a gladiator would in here, and then using my sword to stab back, as opposed to just reaching out here, throw a technique, and I go like this. That is not an effective covering defense. Okay, let's go on to the next defense now and how to improve it. Okay, so the fourth defensive response drill or skill set that we like to recommend or to improve on is the fighter who runs or backpedals backward in here. We're just going to call it evasive footwork. There's a difference between body evasion and evasive footwork. Body evasion is the ability to evade within your stance. It's usually an upper body movement in here. So usually what that means is that's usually going to, in couples, he throws a technique, a slip, okay, he throws a technique, a duck in here, throws a technique, a weave in here like so, throws a technique, a snapback in here like this, right? That's all body evasion. I'm evading within my stance and still staying in range to hit. So as he throws a technique in here, wham, I slip and I counter him right back immediately. All right, he throws a punch in here, I duck in here, and I counter him back in here like that. Okay, those are body evasion techniques. All right, but we're going to just kind of simplify it down. We're going to say just evasion in general, evasive footwork. Because usually body evasion is going to, sometimes it's going to encompass the person moving too. So often what will happen is if a fighter does any body evasion, he usually does it to where he's totally off balance. So common ones, he throws a punch and he snaps back like this, and he has to step back to recapture his balance in here, okay? Because his spine is too far, his upper body is too far outside his base support. So one of the common things that the fighters do when they retreat backwards is they move with their shoulders and their head. They don't move with their feet and their hips. So you'll see this a lot too. You'll see this a lot. So their evasive skill sets are more like here, back up just a little more. You'll see them as he throws a technique. They'll kind of pop out of the way in here like this, and their arms will come out here. Okay, and when they're doing that in here, they're doing that, and what's happening, do that again, is they're kind of moving out of the way, but they're completely separated defense from offense. So they're not in a position to counter until they reset. So again, you'll see them go like this, then they got to reset and then attack. So that's two separate actions right there, and they're completely out of range in here again. Okay, so if you have to really retreat and just backpedal and throw it in reverse to avoid one of these holy shit moments, I have no problem with that. But to do that repetitively is a problem, all right? Because you are becoming a predictable opponent. So the evasive footwork that would work a little better, the drills, is to move with your opponent and control the time distance variable. So what that means is I always put my stance in a functional position. So if I stand real sideways, or I have this back foot in here like so, or my legs are too locked out a little bit, a lot of those stances don't allow you to move, in one motion in here. So I need to have some kind of a stance in here, and a live stance, and my balance is always, it should be in a flux position. It's never in perfect balance. But for perfect balance, we're going to say that your center of gravity is right over your base of support. So I'm not too wide and I'm not too narrow. If I'm too wide, I'm going to have a hard time extracting. If I'm too narrow in here, okay, I might not be able to get the weight transfer I need to change direction. So one of the things just to work on is to not move with your shoulders, but move with your hips. Your arms should stay in position. So if I just step back, straight at 6 o'clock, I'm basically just going to do a push shuffle. So as he throws a technique, I'm just going to push back and maintain my stance in here like this. So we back up again and do that again in here. I'm just slipping back. As soon as I see a movement, again, where am I watching? I'm watching his chest, shoulder area. I'm probably seeing his hips too, but I'm watching right here because I'm waiting for a technique to come. So as soon as I see any kind of movement, I just push off with my front leg and I step with my rear. I'm stepping with my rear foot toe to heel, Okay, I'm going to make sure as I step back that I'm not stepping and stepping on the center line. Right? I'm not stepping on the tightrope in here. Okay? Now when I step back, whether I step back at 6 o'clock, or I step back at 4, or I step back at 7 or 8, and I use angles in here, is to still be in a position where I can strike back. Okay, so when I'm staying just a little further out, in case he charges in on me in here, and as he steps into me, I can step over here, and then immediately counter, like this. So all I'm doing is just taking my rear leg and using that as a placement step in here, and pushing over, whomp, like this. Okay, or if I step this way here, so throw the technique, I step over here, boom, like this. All I'm doing is just stepping out just enough, but I'm staying in my stance. What I'm not doing is throw the punch again here, and I'm going like this, and then trying to hit the guy in here. Okay, that's just simply not going to work if you're looking to, to counter immediately. Okay, so big difference between, running cowardly in here, or running scaredly in here, and then using tactical footwork. Now, in some other circumstances in here, you may have to switch your feet and step back. So, let's back up a little more here. So, I may have to do this, so coming aggressively in here, I may have to step over this way and then deliver a technique like this. So I actually can cross my feet back, but again, I landed in my left-handed, my stance this with my left side forward, in a good position here. So we do that again in here as he comes in, and I go, whoa, boom, and I hit him like this coming in. See, I stepped offline, I basically just opened the door, right, like this, and as he came forward, I just switched my stance in here like this. Okay, what I did not do is come at me again in here. I lean back in here and stuff like so. Okay, so you have to move with your hips when you walk in here. So think about your shoulders, or your hips are underneath your shoulders. I don't want to be stepping back, stuff like this in here. I want to move, with my hips in here like this. Now my lats can move to help repel me through the air, because that's kind of how the human body moves anyway. It kind of reciprocates contralaterally like this. But I shouldn't be moving my arms out. See fighters, lock their legs out, try to do stuff like this. It is simply not in a position to get countered. Not going to get hit, but you're already going to get ran over, because the person's going to keep on coming. Okay, so that is so shuffling backwards to 6, 8 o'clock, 4 o'clock, push shuffling in here like this. So again, the drills can be is keep your arms with you in here as he comes in, a step back, boom, in here, deliver a technique. He comes at me again in here, step over, boom, okay, comes at me again, step over, wham, and I'm maintaining a strong stance. Okay, so that's a simple way to practice defense, footwork. You want to move with your opponent. So as soon as you see a fighter inch up on you, as soon as he starts going like this, okay, back up a little bit, I'll do it to you. As soon as he starts to go like this, you should be controlling that range in here, ready to move in any direction. Don't let a guy get right here and then go, oh, I think I'll retreat now. Okay. Okay, let's go on to the final one. Okay, the final defensive response skill set that you can improve upon has to go with the intercepting and trading sequence that I was talking about. Remember I was telling you earlier here about when a fighter takes an action here like this, if he throws a punch, instead of trying to retreat or block it here, they both just kind of, one guy ducks his head and goes, I think I'll hit you first, and if I take the hit, I'll take the hit. One of those things in here. Well, one of the skill sets you can work on is intercepting or stop hitting your opponent. And that can be coupled with either two things. It can be coupled, you're going to either have to couple it with some kind of blocking or covering while you intercept, like jousting your opponent at the same time, or it can be through evasion, controlled evasion with controlled perception, and then intercepting. This skill set's hard to do in general because you got to be, the timing is got to be right there, and it's got to be effective. Okay, so what that means is it's got to work. It's got to stop. The definition of a stop it, it's like gunfighting, right? If we're standing here like this and he goes to pull a gun, like boom, and I shoot him first. Technically, I stopped him from getting his gun by shooting him first. That's what you got to be able to do. So it takes a lot of timing to do this, but you can practice actually doing this several ways. If you can't do it in sparring, you can practice. Well, you should be able to do it in sparring, but you practice it on like pads and stuff. Have somebody hold a pad and they come forward on you, or he could hold his hand in here, and what you're practicing on is timing the movement. So I could stand here like this, and as he comes forward, as I step in, as soon as I see movement, I jam a technique out there like this. Now, if he's throwing a technique at the same time, okay, I got to be fast on the draw, but I also have to be able to kind of constantly protect my head in here. So I'm either going to have to put my head in a strong position to take a hit if I have to, and adjust my arm in here to kind of shield in here like this, or I might be able to evade and slip his technique or something, or duck his technique and hit him at the same time. That's all based on in the moment, okay? So way for a stop hit to work in here, so you're not trading punches, is as soon as this guy starts to take an action in here like this, is to hit this guy right at center mass in here, right in the throat area like this. Okay, and as I come forward, I enter this sphere influence in here, is to drop my head down and my arm up in here in case I have to block at the same time. Right? Keep in mind, again, remember I was saying the fighters are trading punches, so a bad version of that is he throws a technique, I'm like, going like this in here. And if it doesn't knock me out, okay, do it again, wham, and it doesn't knock him out, we're just going to try to keep going, boom, until somebody drops. Not a smart thing to do. You should never ever try to take a hit. This is not a smart thing to do. So what I'm doing is, I'm timing his motion in here. I'm putting my body in a coil loaded position, and I'm anticipating that we're going to trade in here. But as soon as this guy throws a punch, boom, in here, I'm driving this thing out, and I'm going to use kind of my vision, feeling, instinct a little bit at kind of where to put my head and my arm based on kind of where that technique is coming and kind of where I hit him. When I hit him, depending on his response, I have to continue, because he's still maybe throwing a punch, boom, in here. So that punch is coming here, so my hand was right here in that time. But what happens as I hit him in here, it doesn't quite drop him, but that left hand comes over the top. I may have to deflect at the last second in here like that. Okay, but the point is to keep your vision on the guy the entire time. You can't do an effective stop hit with your eyes closed, and your chin up like this, because that may just clunk in here like that. You may get lucky, but I don't want to get lucky. I want to be right. Okay, so I'm going to have to adjust my guard stance depending on he's throwing a technique. If he's throwing an artless haymaker in here, right? In here, I may have to drop my hand over here and keep my vision on like this, because now this line of attack it was threatened for a moment. Now I stopped it in here, but I'm now watching where that hand's coming in here. So if this fist doesn't do it on the first one, I have to have this hand back in position, boom, in here, like this, bam, bam, so I can immediately respond with the next technique. Okay, so if you're losing your vision and doing stuff like this or that overhand, and whoa, like this, and you're simply just, perception is completely off. That's like turning the lights off in the bedroom again and just swinging where you think the pinata was. So a stop hit is something that's very aggressive. In that can be used if you can time it correctly in here. Okay, so another way it can be deployed is if he throws a punch, and instead of I may have to go around it over the top. So this is where like a body evasion comes in, right? Like a slip. Okay, so let's say he throws his right jab in here like this. I can slip his punch and come over the top immediately and hit him before he gets there. Okay, I don't have to duck it in here like that. And I could. I mean, he could throw the technique, in here, and I could duck in here like this, and maybe come over the top. And the more I do that, the more I kind of do stuff like that, the more it takes me out of position. I can't punch to the upper gate real well and duck down here. So if I really can see it coming in here, and he throws that jab again, I could slip his punch in here and come right over the top and drop him right and aim right for his jaw. Okay, or if he throws his let's say it's lead hook in here like this in here, I can roll with the punch, block and intercept him this way. So throw the hook again in here, right? Boom in here, and I could block and come out this way and hit him with something like that. So stop hitting, you're going to have to, again, my point is you're going to have to either evade in here like this and counter, or you're going to have to block and but you got to protect yourself and have some kind of defensive response simultaneously with your offensive response. Okay, so I hope that information is helpful today. I'll probably do some more of it, coming up in the month or so. But I want to go ahead and kind of at least get that out there, over the internet and get some feedback on it. So work on those skill sets separately. In my opinion, you should be practicing your blocking skills separately. Spend sparring where you just do defense only. I'm just going to block. I'm going to tell my training partner, hey, I'm just going to block. Okay, or hey, I'm just going to shield in here, so don't take my head off, but come at me hard, but I'm going to work on shielding and covering. Or hey, you know what? Keep your mouth closed and stuff in here, and keep your chin down because I may try to intercept you, or stop hit you in here. But you should be practicing all those skill sets separately, just like if you practice your jiu-jitsu, your wrestling, and your Muay Thai separately, and then eventually kind of learn how to bring those things together. But get really good at all those skill sets and figure out how they work in different sparring applications against different opponents. So we'll go ahead and see you next week, hopefully in here, and I don't know exactly what tutorial we're going to do, but stay tuned for the next training tip for MMA next week. Take care.